The people, old and young, rich and not so rich. But at work, at play, every moment of the day, using something, needing something. This is the marketplace, and every man in the street is somebody's potential customer. They are the beginning and the end of every business. The science of judging the market and providing for it is called marketing. Marketing dictates the pace of a company, its timing, its direction. It's very much more than plain selling.
I think that selling is getting rid of the products you make. I think marketing is organizing all the resources of the company to make what your customer needs and wants. If you have any product, doesn't matter whether it's a pop record or a steel rolling mill, it's no good if the customer's not going to buy it when you've done it.
We realize that everything does start in the marketplace and must be tailored to meet either the demand that is there or the demand we intend to create.
Viners of Sheffield know how to create a market for teaspoons. At Rolls-Royce, they know how to influence the minds of the buyers of aero-ink.
We influenced our major customers to want our product and to prefer it over its competition.
San Francisco, and I'd like to know all about it.
The man selling jet engines is also selling air travel, selling romance. They're all part of the same marketing concept, a concept which not only anticipates the future, it shapes it.
The executive has to accept responsibility for making the future happen. I think this is what marketing is all about, making the future happen.
Whatever your business, whether you supply industrial goods, consumer goods, or services, from first to last, it's the customer's interests and the customer's needs that have to be taken into account. The successful enterprise is the one which most effectively supplies the customer with what he wants today and which anticipates correctly what he will buy if it can be made available at the right price tomorrow. No audience of businessmen is going to disagree with that. We all pay lip service to the marketing idea. But somehow, customer satisfaction has become a massive and almost meaningless cliche, a couple of dead words from the marketing textbook. If you were to analyze honestly your business in depth, how would you rate as a customer-oriented concern? Take businessmen off their guard and ask them what they consider to be the most important single factor in the success of their firm, and what sort of answers do you get?
Quality. The plain fact that we make the finest roller bearing in the country.
Know-how, research and development. Technically, we're years ahead.
It's our industrial relations. We've got a very happy workforce here.
Well, all right, we're not pretending they're real, but their message was real enough. How many even mentioned the customer? Yet 200 years ago, this chap knew the scene well enough.
Consumption is the sole end and purpose of production, and the interest of the product ought to be attended to only as far as may be necessary for promoting that of the customer. This maxim is so perfectly self-evident that it would be absurd to attempt to prove it.
That was Adam Smith, the marketing concept plainly stated in 1776. Yet 200 years later, many companies are still organized on these lines. Decisions are made in a tight company circle which certainly doesn't include the customer. He's somewhere outside. Too often it seems almost impossible for him to break through to the decision makers. The modern company should try to find some way of bringing the customer into the center of their decision making, with every department directly in touch with him, aware of his needs and determined to meet them. Knowing the customer is not only the salesman's job. Every department should feel the presence of the man who puts all the bills and pays all the salaries. At the board meeting, every executive should feel the customer at his elbow. If not quite in the flesh like this, at least in the spirit. We've summoned this board meeting of our own, and we've shoved in a few customers. If such a thing could happen to your firm, it might make your boardroom a far less comfortable but far more profitable place.
I did use it. It made my little girl's face quite rough. She's very fair-skinned, you see, so I do have to be careful.
If you'd only put in 6 shelves instead of 5, it would make all the difference to our storage problem.
But we can't afford that quality type of product.
And when the goods do arrive on time, more than likely we'll have a never-ending stream of complaints about shoddy workmanship. For one thing...
But the customer's not in the boardroom. How can top management determine exactly who their potential customers are and what they want? It's not easy. We've chosen 3 companies: Rolls-Royce of Derby, Viners of Sheffield, and Simon Engineering of Stockport. All successful in their own field, and each one of them adapts the marketing approach to business. None of them is concerned with low-cost, rapid-turnover supermarket items. In the cases we've chosen, the customer's needs are more complex, more difficult to ascertain and to satisfy. Rolls-Royce makes and sells aeroplane engines, highly sophisticated technology, high-quality workmanship. Viners of Sheffield manufacture cutlery in what has been a tradition-bound craft industry. Simon Engineering makes massive items of capital equipment for customers from all over the world. This is part of the Simon Engineering method of putting such customers at their ease, establishing a climate in which information can be freely exchanged. The first step in the process of getting to know the customer.
Here, our Russian visitors would like to thank you very much, and all your fellow directors that you have put up the Russian flag.
Thank you.
He appreciates it very much.
Well, it's very kind of you. We like to put up visitors.
If a customer doesn't feel the company with which he's come to deal is in sympathy with him, if he doesn't feel at home, he's unlikely to do much business. This concern for the customer is explained by Director of Simon Engineering, G.H. Sumner.
I believe the first thing you've got to try and do with any customer is get him in the right mood to buy. You've seen that we fly our visitors' flags on the top of our building. It's a little thing, but we've had visitors with tears in their eyes thanking us for doing this. We think it helps throughout the organization that people know there are visitors here, and if, for instance, they're going around the workshops and ask a question, the people in the works are really very helpful in giving them the right technical answer because they know they're a visitor from some particular country.
Simon Engineering is a large and very complex enterprise. The firm began as builders of flour milling and coke oven plants. Now the holding company controls 50 trading subsidiaries in Britain and overseas. Their 7 groups supply processing plants to such basic international industries as chemicals, food, steel, and electrical power. Every one of the groups is loaded with technical experts, experts in design, in production, in finance. But every one of them is aware that all his expertise is only valuable insofar as it can be used to the benefit of the customer. Simon Engineering design, finance, produce, and build exactly to the customer's requirements. For them, every contract is a special case. Every customer has special needs. If you're selling a grain terminal or a flour mill, an automatic warehouse, a fertilizer factory, an iron ore handling installation, you know the customer will be seeking tenders from all over the world. This company is a marketing company by nature and by necessity. And this is Sugden's definition of marketing.
Marketing is the process of defining, anticipating, and creating customer needs and wants, and of organizing all the resources of the company to supply them at the greatest profit both to the customer and the company. All of our people are involved: research and development, design, purchasing, production, finance, selling, of course, advertising, installation, commissioning, after-sales service. The whole lot really are involved in satisfying the customer needs and wants. Let's just divert onto finance for a moment. In the export markets, one of the biggest problems these days is organizing long terms of credit. Your finance department is deeply in this right from the very beginning, and very often nowadays you get the order because you've arranged more suitable terms of credit than the Germans, for instance, rather than being better technically.
They are quite conscious of this. I mean, it's not an incidental thing. They are consciously aware.
Very much so. And they know they've got to do it quickly, too. Otherwise, you'll get beaten to the gun by the Germans or the Japanese.
Do you put boundaries on the market, or do you try for all the customers you can possibly get?
It's a question of how are you going to make money for your customer and for yourself? And if you chase every red herring, you won't make any money for either of you. It's a question of concentration of effort where it can show the best results.
How did you set about, then, identifying your customers and finding out exactly what their needs were?
I came to the conclusion what we got to start with was the facts, not guesses and hunches and running things by the seat of our pants, but real facts. So we set up a small market research section to try and get at the facts. This was headed by a chemist because he had the sort of outlook and analyzing mind we needed. And because we're an engineering company, we gave him an engineer, and because he's got to do a lot of figuring, we gave him a statistician. They have done such good work that now we just don't know how we ever ran the business without them.
Now, I take it that what they were actually finding out was just who your customers were and what their needs were, and the best ways for you to satisfy them. What kind of questions did they have to ask?
Well, you've got to ask a lot of unpleasant, mean, ruthless questions, the sort of questions that nobody likes to answer. We're all sentimental about the business we've been in all our lives. We all believe it is a great success. And you can kid yourself on these things. I mean, let's take the flour milling industry that I've been in most of my life. I believe it's growing. Some of our other colleagues say it isn't. It's declining. And we never had any facts, even though we've been in the business nearly 100 years. To get the real answer and what we should be doing about it, you have to get facts, and you have to analyze the facts, and you have to be completely ruthless about it. Forget all your sentiments and all your friendship for customers, and work on facts. Then you can start managing the business instead of the drift of events managing you. I read somewhere once that a director should spend 70% of his time on the day-to-day business and 30% on what was going to happen 1 and 2 years hence. A managing director, however, should spend 70% of his time on what's going to happen 5 and 10 years hence, and only 30% on the day-to-day business. It's perhaps an exaggerated example, but you've got to be thinking ahead of the likely requirements. Otherwise, sooner or later, you go off the top of your curve, and you're down into the decline area, and you're sitting wringing your hands and saying it's all too difficult to get it right. Then you go out of business.
In some places, modern marketing methods are slow to take root. This is such a place, Sheffield, the city of steel, including fine steel plated with silver for the table. The manufacture of silverware and cutlery is probably the most traditional of all the industries in a city of industrial tradition.
These 6 feet have trodden all over Sheffield's tradition. Reuben Viner and his 2 sons head Viners of Sheffield, manufacturers of cutlery and plated silverware, a company which had for years made traditional patterns by traditional methods. By the early 50s, the Viners felt that not only they, but the whole Sheffield industry was out of touch with modern customer needs. Somehow new products and a new image had to be dragged out of the system. Somehow the marketing revolution had to be made to happen. They set about transforming the company, products, methods of production, sales techniques. Big changes and the start of a new era.
I think the biggest thing that's happened to us is that we've gone into marketing. You probably don't know, but as far as this trade was concerned, and it was our philosophy as well, that the goods were not advertisable. They lasted too damn long, as a matter of fact, and we thought that even if we'd sold and had a satisfied customer, they were not likely to come back for another lot of stuff within a short period of time.
And what made you think you could change all that?
Well, we had viewed not only this market and its growing affluence, but we looked at America and other overseas markets and saw that the consumption per head was far greater there than here, and that there was this great potential not only for having 1 matching set in a house, but possibly for having 2 matching sets, the same as we're now getting to 2- and 3-car families.
So what did you do about it?
This was the start for a full marketing concept, which we have had to learn over the years, of course. But we did learn that advertising is not the only thing, but we have to have the marketing concept from the goods leaving our factory to finally being used by the consumer.
When you talk of it, the marketing concept, all down the board like that, what do you mean?
Well, it's creating an atmosphere in which selling can take place reasonably easily. We don't have first-class salesmen in shops anymore. Goods must be handed over in a simple and easy sort of way. And so selling must be made easy, and at the same time we must have a demand from the consumer end for our goods, because we have told them that those are the best goods they can buy.
It's no use being a highly skilled craftsman if nobody wants the craftsmanship, or if it must be bought at a price that people are not prepared to pay. So in these successful firms, the awareness of customer needs goes right down to the shop floor. At Viner's, manufacturing methods had to change. Workers had to become more productive, use different tools and techniques. Over long apprenticeships, the watertight boundaries that fenced off one operation from another had to be modified or swept away. But at this firm, making consumer goods, workers too were able to realize that better wages and long-term security could only come in the end from satisfied customers. A lesson in marketing. Both management and labor must adapt to meet the changing customer needs.
We were considered cutlery and silverware manufacturers, period. We felt that this had to be widened because we could see the market was ripe for something wider. So we decided to call ourselves suppliers of tableware, kitchenware and giftware, principally in metal.
This took us straight out of a comparatively narrow field into a very much larger market potential in giftware in competition with leather, textiles, glass, china, and so on.
We'd seen a greater degree of affluence, and we felt that there was a chance of developing in people's minds, and this is where we have succeeded, I think, a consciousness of the importance of that part of their living. In other words, people do notice the china, the tablecloths on their tables, but very few people really notice the cutlery as yet.
Well, that's remarkably good value. That's the one.
In the gift field, just as an example, there are certain price brackets. Guinea, 2 guineas, 3 guineas, up to 5 guineas. And we all know when we go out to buy a gift how much we want to spend. So we try and work to retail price bracket. And whenever we're discussing a new product, we say, well, we consider that will sell for such and such a price. Is that the right price? We think we can sell volume at that price.
And if you have try to cover too wide a cross-section of the market, you end up making a very diverse range of products, in a very diverse number of materials with a limited labor force, and you in fact end up making none of them successfully or profitably. And so there had to be some restriction here. And one of the things that our market orientation has helped us to do is in fact to rationalize and concentrate our efforts on a fewer number of products in total, and thus make them more efficiently and effectively, because we feel extremely strongly that even though we may have built up a brand image and have provided what is a distinctive product, we have got as a company to give as good or better value for money than any of our competitors.
More lessons in marketing. Know the customers and the potential customers. What they'll buy, what they'll pay. Spot the trends and influence the market.
Beautifully designed. And by modern productive techniques, we've been able to develop it at a price which is very acceptable. Here, we've done similar things design-wise in stainless steel, packaging.
Miners have created an image. That is marketing success, when your name on a product makes it fashionable, desirable to own.
We're trying to make people tableware conscious totally, so everything that goes on the table should match, and also that they should be fashion or design conscious, and they should be up to date with the design and their table and their tableware.
This move towards gracious living has a very civilizing influence. It's very difficult to have an argument with a man over a lunch table that is properly set out and that is elegant. And if we can stop this bolting of food and let people live a little more graciously, I'm certain that there is a definite civilizing influence in making them tableware conscious.
Now, how far can you anticipate those demands?
We may have complete changes in eating habits as far as we know, and we have to keep our eyes on what is going on throughout the world.
We want, in fact, not only to look for today, but to look for tomorrow. And because a particular article may have been made from a particular material for the last 100 or 1,000 years, we don't feel that necessarily it always ought to be made from the same material.
We are looking into the question of different materials. We've got the disposable aspect to look at of all things which are being used today.
It is, in fact, our philosophy that if anybody's going to put us out of business, so far as the products which we are currently making are concerned, it's going to be us.
Rolls-Royce have created an image all right. They're not selling giftware, they're selling sophisticated technology. The car is part of the image, but the real business these days is in one of the most advanced and difficult markets of all, jet engines. Sir David Huddy is the managing director of the Aero Engine Division, and he was a key figure in one of the great marketing success stories, the sale of the Rolls-Royce RB211 engine to power the Lockheed TriStar Airbus. At this level of business, what does marketing mean?
Well, it clearly means a very different thing from marketing a consumer product. You have to have an image, a public image. Our firm, I think, is fortunate in that it has a public image. You're dealing with a relatively small number of highly sophisticated customers who understand what they want to buy, are capable of evaluating it.
I should think in this field in particular, it's very easy to become dominated by the pride in your product, to let that override the real needs of your customers.
Well, if you've been a little time in this business, you recognize one fundamental truth about it. There is nothing in the world more useless than the best aero engine you ever designed, developed, and built that somebody isn't going to put in an airplane, that somebody is going to use. This is a very rapidly changing business. Nobody can sit back in his ivory tower and decide what's best for 10 years from now. He can never know enough. He must be in continuous dialogue with the manufacturers of aircraft, with governments, with armed services, with airlines, for all purposes, passengers, freight, feeder lines, at all levels.
A dialogue with such demanding customers means questions. Questions by the thousands, requiring fast, complicated, accurate answers. The Rolls-Royce Computer Center, the biggest installation in Europe, is part of the marketing operation too. Customer needs here mean calculations about costs, financing, performance, maintenance, programming. The capture of the TriStar contract in 1968 was a classic example of brilliant marketing technique. The core of the achievement was the recognition way back in the 1950s of where the market really lay, in America. Rolls-Royce had to get into the American market with the right engine at the right time, or get out of the aero engine business.
I think the present chairman of the company summed it up very well. He said, to do it won't guarantee success. Great risk. Not to do it, we guarantee failure. It has been borne in on us that my number might be 1 or 2 wrong, but 58% of all the passenger miles flown are flown by American-based airlines. 60-odd% of all the new commercial equipment bought, this is outside Russia and China, satellites, is bought by American-based airlines. Today, 85% of all the new commercial aircraft are sold by American manufacturers. We therefore thought it was unthinkable that we should, and we had ambitions, get to and stay in the big league, the engine business, without launching one of our gas turbine engines in a major American airframe for major American customers. Well, we set that target in 54. We achieved it in 68.
The Americans have a natural and massive reluctance to allowing a foreign company to establish itself in this highly technical field, a field that is so much an American preserve. Rolls-Royce had to build up a huge reservoir of confidence, not only in the product, but in their entire organization. They sent a huge task force to the States. Sir David Huddy himself lived there for 7 months to direct the campaign.
Now, we had to convince them that we had on paper this product, that it commercially was what it said, that we could do it. Very importantly, that we had the people in depth, the management, the facilities, the resources to do it. That we were determined to do it.
What was the most difficult point to satisfy them on?
Well, you start with the basic thing that we wouldn't have got there had we not convinced them that we'd got a competitive edge. It wasn't enough to be just as good. We had to convince them we were somewhat better. You've got to convince all of them the advantages of the product you're offering outweigh the disadvantages, and that it's better for them, for their job, to have your product rather than your competitors. You must do that fairly. Incidentally, you never get any marks for criticizing your competitor. You're allowed to present your own information in such a way that your customer will ask your competitor the right questions. But you mustn't criticize. I made a rule during the last competition, in fact, virtually before we started, that our objective must be that we never had to ask someone to change any part of a report he'd written because we didn't think it'd get us a fair crack of the whip. We had to have done our work on him well enough to make sure that we got it as good as we could get. Now, that doesn't say that he comes out entirely favorably for you, but you've had a fair hearing. You know, sitting back in his chair, and that you must do regularly. Mentally put yourself in his chair. You've got to be satisfied that before he writes that report, he's had all you can tell him.
How far are you willing to change what you provide to meet exactly what the customer wants?
Well, we're in a business which changes very rapidly, so we wouldn't stay in it at all unless we were able to adapt ourselves to different needs. Don't forget, we've been in the business of aero engines continuously now since 1960. I think I'm right in saying that as a company with continuous association with the engine business for the longest. Now, you can't do that without customer contact and consciousness.
Each of those three companies has learned three basic lessons of marketing. First, they've recognized clearly the nature of the business they're in and are able to concentrate on key opportunities as they present themselves. Second, they've taken care to find out exactly who their customers are and to keep in continuous touch so they know precisely what their needs are today and to anticipate what their needs will be tomorrow.
Third, they've organized their resources, capital, plant, and people, production, sales, finance, research and development, everyone, so that they are best able to meet their customers' demands in a way that gives the most satisfaction to the customer and the best profit to the company. The customer is firmly at the center of the company's operation.
Well, how do you stand? When did you last try to define precisely the nature of your business? When did you last make a systematic and scientific analysis to identify your customers and to determine exactly what their requirements from your company might be? Are your resources really mobilized and balanced to give the most satisfaction to the customer at the most profit to the company? Is your company's structure flexible, ready and able to improve and innovate, and to anticipate the demands of tomorrow? And when tomorrow comes, will you be in a position to manipulate the market?